People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to ordinary people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Israel's Prime Minister has delivered a stark warning to Palestinians. Their week-long retaliation against Hamas is just the beginning. Civilians are fleeing northern Gaza by any means possible after the Israeli army told them to move south for their own safety. The deadline to leave passed at 9 p.m. UK time. The UN says ordering 1.1 million people to evacuate in 24 hours defies the rules of war and basic humanity. The Israeli army has already carried out its first ground raids in Gaza in an effort to locate Hamas terrorists and hostages. Almost 1,900 people have been killed there, including 614 children, as Israel's total siege of the enclave continues. Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to destroy Hamas, but he didn't elaborate on what might follow.
We are striking at our enemies with unprecedented might. I emphasise, this is just the beginning. Our enemies have only begun paying the price, and I won't detail what is yet to come. But I tell you that this is only the beginning.
Well, the US President Joe Biden says urgently addressing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is a priority for the United States. He's also spoken to the families of Americans who remain unaccounted for since Hamas attacked Israel last Saturday.
I assured them my personal commitment to do everything possible to return every missing American to their families. We're working round the clock to secure the release of Americans held by Hamas in close cooperation with Israel and our partners around the region. We're not going to stop till we bring them home.
The Israeli military is continuing to amass tanks and troops near Gaza ahead of an expected ground incursion, and more than 300,000 reservists have been mobilised. Elsewhere, 16 Palestinian protesters were shot dead by Israeli security forces as violence erupted in the West Bank and in occupied East Jerusalem. And the situation on the northern border with Lebanon remains tense after the Hezbollah terror group said it would ignore calls to stay out of the conflict. A Reuters video journalist has been killed while working in southern Lebanon, a warning some viewers may find the footage distressing. Issam Abdallah was part of a team based in Alma al-Shab near the Israeli border, providing a live signal. Reuters say they're working with authorities and supporting Issam's family and colleagues. 2 other Reuters journalists were injured during the explosion. France has raised its security alert to the highest possible level following the death of a teacher in a knife attack. It happened at a high school in the northern city of Arras. A former student of the school has been arrested, and President Macron has called the incident a result of barbaric Islamist terrorism. Meanwhile, 15 French nationals have been confirmed to have died during last weekend's attacks in Israel by Hamas. This is GB News on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. Now it's time for headliners.
Hello and a happy global day of jihad to all our Islamic fundamentalist viewers. Welcome to Headliners, your nightly run through the next day's headlines with 3 comedians. I'm one of them, I'm Leo Kearse, and I'm joined tonight by 2 Headliners legends, Lewis Schaefer and Nick, the big dog, Dixon. How are you both doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm waiting to see how Nick is doing, because I'm very sensitive when Nick is here.
I'm doing very well. I'm stunned by the opening joke you went for, but, you know, that's classic Leo, isn't it?
Hey, you look very relaxed.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the chit-chat.
That's always my favourite bit.
Saturday's front pages. The Telegraph leads with Israel sends in forces as it warns of powerful offensive. The Times has disabled teen taken by Hamas. The Daily Mail leads with Israel's tanks strike into Gaza. The Sun has £9 million BBC Freddie payout. The Financial Times has residents flee Gaza City in fear. And the Daily Star has balloonatic. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Telegraph. What have they got, Lewis?
Well, the big story of the day and the week and probably the year is Israel sends in forces as it warns of powerful offensive, and Israel has asked the entire residents of the Gaza Strip, which is like 1.2 or 1.3.
Well, the northern part of the Gaza Strip.
The northern part of the Gaza Strip, which is where most of the people I think live, and they're telling them they have to vacate that area, and because they're going to send in Israeli troops to get back over 100 kidnapped people.
So they've been bombing and shelling Gaza from the air and sending in teams to try and extract people who've been kidnapped. But now they're actually going to send in the ground forces en masse to go door to door, street to street, and root out Hamas militants.
I assume that's what they're going to do. I mean, the size of the Gaza Strip is, I think it was the size of 2 Washington, D.C.s. It's not a huge place.
How big's Washington, D.C.? That's not a great reference for UK viewers. We need a Sunderland.
It's about 7 Englands.
It's small. It's basically like cities, and they're going to have to go door to door. I mean, it's an horrific thing. It's been explained to me that this is not the end of the world. I'm a New York Jew, and to me, I've just had premonitions of doom. Just the worst thing is going to happen, and it might be, and it might not be as bad. Josh Howie has explained it to me. It might not be as bad as. I'm hoping it's not as bad.
Right. I mean, Nick, do you have a less pessimistic view of this? And by the way, it's 140 square miles, although that could be an estate agent who told me that.
Yeah. Well, no. In terms of the escalation, the question is, was it done to provoke a reaction from Israel and then provoke a counter-reaction from Hezbollah or whatever? I mean, I don't know. I still don't know what the motivation was, other than just Hamas being Hamas, and that's what they do.
Well, I think Israel was there was a détente between Israel and Gulf states, the United Arab Emirates, and also Saudi Arabia. We're in talks with relations are really improving between.
Thanks to Trump.
Places. Well, you can't just say anything that good that happens.
No, Jordan Peterson today on X gave Trump credit for that and said we should. Biden's gone against it just because it was Trump. Did you not see that?
But I mean, Hamas really wanted to. I think Hamas felt that they'd been ignored, and Iran wanted to scupper any sort of peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
and Iran are obviously behind Hamas.
But now they've got to evacuate more than 1 million people from North Gaza in 24 hours, which the White House is calling a tall order, especially if it goes anything like Biden's Afghanistan evacuation, which was horrendous.
Well, yeah, the roads have been bombed. I mean, there's rubble strewn everywhere. And also, Hamas are ordering people to stay in their houses. They don't want people to leave. They want civilians there so they can have corpses to parade in front of the cameras saying, look what Israel did. And I mean, and do you think, Lewis, there's a danger that Israel is now going to go in and civilians are going to die, and perhaps public opinion around the world could start turning once they see, scores of dead Palestinian civilians?
Well, that was my fear. My fear was, I mean, as a New Yorker, as a person who was born in 1957, which was just 12 years after the end of the Holocaust, my attitude is don't make trouble. Is like, don't. And the Israelis are not. They're not like me. Yeah. They'll go in and pound them, and maybe it needs to be pounded. I mean, it's similar. I tell you what happened. It's a very similar thing to what happened at 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I thought to myself that because New York was such a pariah city in America, I know people can't imagine that being the case, but New York City isn't like America in the minds of. And when it happened, I thought to myself, no one's going to care about this, but people did care because it hit a nerve for all Americans and people around the world. It's just a horrible, barbaric act. And it's like what happened in Israel was such a horrible, barbaric act that it's justified. What this warrants is Liam Neeson in those movies, in whatever the movie, what was the movie?
Taken.
It's like he's going to come. And I think that's what most good people are thinking.
I don't think any good people have thought that so far, Lewis. And also Liam Neeson is getting on a bit now. I think it's quite a lot to put on a 78-year-old man's shoulders.
I think he means the I will find you and I will kill you very specific set of skills. Yeah.
But coming back to the UK, I mean, police are bracing for Palestinian protests as well, it says in the Daily Telegraph. I mean, this is something we're sort of braced for things to happen in the UK on the apparent global day of jihad. That hasn't really manifested in the UK. But do you think things can kick off tomorrow?
Well, look, it could kick off any time, couldn't it? I mean, I forgot we were doing this story, but this is a big problem. This is the thing, Lou, I'm sure you agree with me, but a lot of people are pointing out now, lots of people were very liberal on mass immigration. They were very for multiculturalism. They didn't worry about the lack of assimilation. But now we have to say, this is a huge problem we can't ignore anymore. Yeah, and
this is what multiculturalism means. You get cultures who despise other cultures, who have, deeply different ideas about how things should be done, and have deeply held medieval internecine grudges that they've brought with them. There's no magic soil in the UK. People don't suddenly become Western Liberal Democrats as soon as they step onto UK soil.
And especially because we've lost confidence in our values. And we have this paradox where we have to defend liberal democratic values, which is, because we're more liberal, we're not just like Saudi Arabia where we just say it's our way. It's hard to defend such a thing. That's a sort of paradox, but we have to get tougher about defending our values, I think.
Yeah, and I think I'm not optimistic. I'm more optimistic, but I'm definitely pessimistic because I think. So I'm hoping. I think this could be a mark in the sand. Not a mark in the sand. This could be the start of something where people are beginning to realize that there are tremendous forces against not just the Jews living in Israel, but this is an attack on all Western people.
Civilization.
And civilization, yes. And including people of their own kind, including regular Palestinians and regular Muslims. It's like saying, we don't care about the rule of law. We don't care about anything.
And now people are suggesting the army at Jewish primary schools. I mean, that's how sick it is. But what are we going to do? We've let it get to this point.
And the solution is going to be quite unpalatable for a lot of people. Moving on, what have the Times got on the front page with, Nick?
So they've got disabled teen taken by Hamas, which is the horrific story of Ruth Perez, who has muscular dystrophy and went to the Supernova Festival, which was, of course, was attacked. And she's fed through a tube, and so she's in a wheelchair. She was there with her father, and they don't know if she's alive or the father's alive. They've been taken hostage, and her sister is speaking about it here. And it's just a horrific story of, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So, it's important to get these stories, get the names, get the actual details of some of the horrific things that have happened.
Yeah. And, I mean, funnily enough, I was on the phone to my old agent, Mike, and he was telling me, this was on, I think, Sunday, and he was telling me, friends in Israel, where he just returned from, the mother was taking the two kids, was kidnapped with the two kids. One of the kids was, the leg got injured by shrapnel or by something, so they were taking too long, and the Hamas militant got annoyed with how long they were taking and just told them to go home. And just in that split second of somebody getting annoyed saved all of their lives.
Well, that's a sign of humanity. That's actually lovely. But, I mean, the fact that they're kidnapping people and raping and murdering people, I think that's a sign of a return to conservative values.
Well, I'm not sure.
That was a joke.
All right.
I'm trying to make a joke about this thing. That's why this kind of headliner's concept of comedy and news doesn't...
The news isn't always this horrific, in fairness. But moving on to The Sun, Lewis, what are they leading with? Hopefully it's less horrific.
It's pretty bad. It's also bad. It's bad at a couple of different levels. The BBC gave Freddie Flintoff, who was £9 million because he was in a car accident, on Top Gear. And what's his name was in a car accident in Top Gear?
The small guy, Richard.
The Stig.
Richard.
Is he called the Stig?
Not the Stig.
I've never watched it.
Richard Hammond.
Richard Hammond.
And
because he couldn't reach the pedals.
And I'm looking at the picture of him. The picture's right in the thing there. Yeah. Bring up the picture.
There's no picture. That's just
oh my God! Look what happened to his face.
But he looks horrible, and he was such a handsome guy, Freddie Flintoff, wasn't he? I thought he was handsome.
He's still kind of handsome. He kind of looks like he's in Blur.
Yeah, no, he's not that handsome. He looks like just some bloke now. And he's been given $9 million from the BBC. But the good news is, it's not from the license payers.
Where'd they get it from?
It's from the BBC Studios.
So they're a production company.
A production company
that gets paid by the BBC.
Owned by the BBC. So that £9 million is, let's say there's 60 million. It could have reduced the license fee.
I was going to say, the only positive is he's doing his bit to defund the BBC, but you're saying it's more complicated.
He's defunding the BBC. Well, in one way or the other, he's taking money away from the commercial arm. That's still the BBC.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it for part one. Coming up, we've got a Wembley boss accusing Israel of racism, Boris officially under Carrie's thumb, and the global day of jihad. When do we take the decorations down for it? See you in a couple of minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearse and I'm joined by 2 legends, Lewis Schaefer and Nick, the XL bully, Dixon. Moving on, we've got the Mirror, and they say behind every great man is a great woman, but also behind Boris Johnson was Carrie Symonds, Lewis.
Well, she might be a great woman, according to the Mirror. An explosive COVID WhatsApps show that Simon Case joked that Carrie Johnson, or Carrie Symonds, is that her?
Carrie Johnson now.
Carrie Johnson
and then, I
got
think.
married to the Prime Minister.
Was the real person. That's how you know you're a somebody. My wife never changed her name. And when you're somebody, they change their name for you. Yeah. When they're not. Anyway, so Simon Case is the cabinet secretary, and in October 2020, during the lockdown or before the lockdown, this guy said, I don't know what's going on. When I speak to Boris Johnson, I think like his wife is making all the decisions. And the truth is that the COVID was a complete scam from start to finish. You're going to have to, I'm going to say it every time.
You're only doing it, so I have to push back on it. COVID wasn't a complete scam. It did originate probably in a Chinese laboratory. That's a conspiracy theory I'll go for. Yeah. But it wasn't. I had COVID, and I felt really ill because I didn't get vaccinated.
I had COVID. We don't know whether that was caused by a vaccine or whether that was psychologically induced. We don't know.
But here, the interesting thing is that Boris Johnson, despite his projection of immense strength, Herculean strength, I'm being slightly sarcastic, he actually, Carrie was pulling the
We all
strings.
thought it, but then it was like, is that just sort of a sexist banter? No, it's just the literal truth. They said it as well. But then, I'm amazed that politicians, by the way, are still WhatsApping. Why don't they just meet each other by the docks? You know what I mean? With a burner phone that they then throw in the sea. Because we will see your WhatsApps very soon. Yeah. And it's all come out. And the only person defending Boris is, of course, Nadine Dorries, who's saying this is all misogyny. She's saying, they're just attacking Carrie because they want to get to Boris, and it's classic misogyny. She'll defend Boris in eternity. As a ghost, she'll be defending.
Do you think she's just waiting for her chance to pull the strings?
To
see where you're going.
But I don't think it's misogyny. I think the other side of it is like, look at how smart women are. Behind every great man is a greater woman. So I think it's a combination of both of those things. They just want to make Boris Johnson look bad and saying he didn't come up with his own mind. Well, Boris Johnson is basically a COVID criminal.
Okay, well, staying with the Tory party, we've got the Guardian now with the party conference out of the way. You can say it, but not when I'm talking. The Tories are dishing out some bad news, Nick.
Yeah, Jeremy Hunt warns of difficult decisions ahead as public finances worsen. Does he ever warn of anything else? Like, it should be even more difficult decisions, because that's all he ever talks about. He's the grimmest chancellor we've ever had. Of course, we are in a bad way, so what are we going to do? And he's saying that the borrowing is set to be 20 or 30 billion higher than predicted, which is because of interest rates. And he's ruling out, at least he's ruling out more tax rises, but he's saying that they're not going to be able to do what they wanted to do. And he hopes to cut spending to minimise risk, blah, 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 of recession. And the Bank of England are warning that interest rates are going to stay high. And so this is where we are. And it's very hard to win an election on this kind of thing. My worry is that Labour get in and just for a sort of feel-good factor, just spend all this money we don't have, which is kind of what they like.
Labour government spending money hand over fist.
Yeah, because this is so grim. No one's going to vote for this, are they? That's the problem. But he's just trying to be fiscally responsible.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, Lewis, people always say, oh, the Tories had austerity for so many years and nobody could they cut public services.
Yeah.
Are they mental? Like we had the Arts Council, all these recipients of enormous public largesse, just getting our money pulled out of our pockets and thrown at these quangos and idiots.
Yeah, well, I think you're wrong about why he's saying this. He has to say it because it's things. If things get better, he can say, "Well, look what I've done." If things get worse, I said I predicted it.
So you think there's going to be a sudden twist to good news before the election?
No, there's not going to be good news.
All right, moving on. We've got the Times reporting on the global day of jihad. Apparently, there's a downside to importing thousands of Islamic fundamentalists to Europe, Lewis.
Do you know what? You could say it that way. I'm not prepared to say it that way. I am prepared to say that this was one guy, and he came from Chechnya recently. He didn't, and he...
A Muslim state?
Yeah, a Muslim state, yeah. So France school stabbing, teacher killed, an Arras knife attack. It's so close to Britain. It's probably closer...
I know where France is.
No, but not just France is close, but Arras is close. It's right on the other side of Dover. It's like probably about 100 miles away.
I don't know my Arras from my elbows.
Oh, there you go. And so he was a student, and they let him into school, and he killed a teacher. I mean,
and he shouted Allah Akbar.
Okay, so we know exactly what the whole thing is. We're in a state of war right now, and it's going to get messy. And I'm more optimistic now. Since Josh spoke to me, I can't believe I'm actually listening to Josh.
Josh has made you optimistic. That is a low bar.
I know, really. I don't spend enough time talking to my own people. But we're going to have bad times. But I think people are realizing that we can't let the bad... We have to decide to save our country.
Western liberal democracy in
Yes.
Western Europe. I mean, Nick, would you agree, or do you think open borders, no nations, let's bring them all in?
Yeah, that's my view, Leo. You know me so well. Yeah, no, it's terrible, isn't it? It's really horrible. And this policeman has said that he never imagined this could happen in Arras. And this is the thing we've been complacent about what's happened here. And there's going to be more of it. And like you say, he was on a terror watch list, but they can't. And you think, why didn't they get him? And that is upsetting. But they can't get everyone because there's so many. You know, apparently in the UK we're monitoring like 20-something thousand people the whole time.
And we've got 40,000 in jail already. Right.
Did you hear Scott Adams in 2017 very controversially said the next Muslim country to have a nuclear arsenal will be France? Did you know he said that? Scott Adams, 2017, provocative kind of prediction.
To have a nuclear arsenal?
Yeah.
France is already a nuclear power.
Yes, that's the joke. He's saying the next Muslim country.
I get it now. I get it. Anyway,
that's so amazing.
Moving on,
we've got it before.
Shut up. Moving on, we've got the Telegraph now, and the question over why Wembley hasn't been lit up in the flag of Israel has been answered. Their chair has accused Israel of ethnic cleansing and racism. Nick.
Yeah, this is an ongoing story. We covered it last night. This is FA Inclusion Chair consulted over Israel Wembley tribute, accused Jewish state of ethnic cleansing. So now this is Deji Davis. And now generally Twitter archaeology is a bad thing, but it has shown us here how radically left many of our institutions have become. And you find this guy had made these horrible accusations about Israel. You know, he was very much on the Free Palestine side, and he used the phrase ethnic cleansing, a disappropriation of Palestinian land. Now, let's be very, very fair. This was 2013, and it was 10 years ago, so he said he's evolved since then, and now he says, look, the actions of Hamas were horrific and resulted in the loss of many innocent victims, and he's now saying, he's now much more moderate. Okay, so fine, but nonetheless, they still didn't put the lights up, and this guy was on the board, so you have to question it, what is going on, and it's dodgy.
Yeah, and this seems, I mean, they showed the lights for Ukraine, and I was disgusted that Wembley didn't do it for Israel. I mean, I know I'm Scottish, but, you know, there's an affinity between the Scots and the Jews. One of our most famous people was Jewish, Rabbi Burns. But Lewis, I mean, what do you make of this? Do you think our institutions are as systemically woke as Nick says?
Well, here's a guy who's head of the football associations, or chairman of the football associations Inclusion Advisory Board. I mean, so what are you going to expect from a guy like that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's like the chief rabbi.
Yeah, but we're paying in every organisation, public sector, private companies. We've got inclusion departments, equity and diversity departments that all propagate these ideas, these horrific ideas.
Yeah. And I think maybe over time, I'm now slightly optimistic
that things will change. Well, maybe they will. Moving on, we've got The Guardian now, and a globalist economist has come up with a way to waste money and encourage corruption, Lewis.
Yes, it's like, let's print money. The IMF should give poor countries $300 billion a year to fight climate crisis, says Joseph Stiglitz. And he's this guy who's from the International Monetary Fund, and he says we should just print money. Because poor developing countries are going to be punished by climate change.
And they need the money to green themselves. But I mean, we know what happens with foreign aid. Basically, foreign aid is taking money from poor people in rich countries and giving it to rich people in poor countries.
And causing inflation. And that's one of the thing about Jeremy Hunt. $300 billion, it's like $1 billion here, $1 billion there. After a while, you're talking about real money. And the truth is that climate change.
Go on, say it, Lewis.
Doesn't even say it.
I can't say it. They know
you can say it.
It's even more of a scam than COVID. It's a total.
I'd just like to say, this does not reflect the views of GB News.
But don't you have to say it in a serious way?
Oh, yeah, I do, actually. Yeah, so climate change is happening.
But you know that's not true.
It's happening.
No, I'm pretending to argue with you because you're taking the contrary position. Because we're not allowed to have an open discussion. We have to have supposedly balance.
I don't think the solution is taking all this money from people in the West and handing it to dictators in poor countries.
Well, look, it's better than jumping on a snooker table or gluing yourself to a painting. I will say that, and it's more in line with what people like Tony Blair said. Like, this is how we can help, like, financially. But yeah, I'm suspicious as a layman. I'm suspicious of this sentence. Basically, it's printing money. It wouldn't be inflationary because normally. The layman.
Well, the lessons of the last few years really learned.
Maybe I'm wrong because this guy has a Nobel Prize. Then again, they're not that hard to get these days, are they? Like Obama probably has one or whatever.
No, I'll get you one tomorrow, Nick. Anyway, that's it for part 2. Coming up, we've got Dylan Mulvaney, Welshophobia, and no acting jobs for white people. Sorry, Lewis. Looks like you're signing on next week. See you in a couple of minutes.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to ordinary people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Mail now, and it looks like men are better at being women than women are, Nick.
That's one way of putting it, yeah. So campaigners fury as transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney wins Attitude Magazine's Woman of the Year as critics accuse awards of gaslighting women everywhere, which is a fair assessment. And of course this is appalling, and I agree with Maya Forstater, who says it's an insult. And just that it's awful. Of course that's true. I have a slightly different take, though, to the gender-critical feminists. I believe this stuff came from feminism. That's where they're going wrong. It came from, once you said, look, women are like men, we can be in the army, we can do everything, instead of celebrating women's difference, you said, no, we're just as good as men, we're the same as men. It was only a matter of time before people...
Women of the Year Award, supported by...
Dylan Mulvaney just interrupted my brilliant point there.
I don't know if they're playing the...
I don't know.
They seem to be playing it, but with no noise or very quiet sound.
I have no idea.
So we can talk over the top of it.
Basically, my brilliant point I was making was that this actually comes from feminism, but I've actually, and they make it
now
louder
they're turning up. So yeah,
there's a feminist operating the sound at the back.
If only we had a man dressed as a woman in there instead.
Exactly. If Dylan Mulvaney was saying, now maybe I'll have another go. The point is, I'm saying it actually came from feminism, and so it can't be misogynist. But actually, I did a podcast recently with Will Noland, who was sacked from Eton for his lecture on masculinity. Yeah. And he kind of brought this full circle for me, where he said, no, feminism is misogynist because it says that women should just be like men. So now I think that this did come from feminism. But so my point is, Maya
What's wrong with being a man?
Well, the point is this. Maya Forstater is saying we need to get rid of, we need more feminism. I'm saying we need less. And that was the problem in the first place. Right. And that would have been a brilliant point if I hadn't been interrupted 5 times by a video clip.
Well, I agree that, trans and feminists are at loggerheads, and that's why I'm enjoying it so much.
But from what you said, shouldn't we extrapolate that because this guy, Dylan Mulvaney, is trying to act like a woman now, that she is ultimately the most feminist because she's trying to be as feminist as possible from a male perspective. So she's come the furthest. So, and the second thing is, he's probably a gay guy. I don't know, was he considered gay beforehand?
Yeah, it was before. Before he
transitioned. And so this is a gay publication. So why shouldn't a gay publication have a gay guy?
Intuitive point from Lewis.
Well, staying with the trans issue, The Guardian now, and while some kids are getting gender transitions pushed on them too quickly, some people are waiting too long with tragic consequences, Lewis.
Well, this is really sad, and it's hard to say. Basically, NHS Gender Care delayed, quote-unquote, contributed to trans woman killing herself, coroner says. This is down in Brighton, and this poor little girl, I don't know. It didn't say she's a trans woman. That means she started off being labeled as a boy. So she was a boy who was she was labeled as a boy.
There was a boy.
She was a boy.
She was born male.
She was born a boy, and she wanted to transition into being a girl. Yeah. And in the hospital care, and so her mother, who's a psychiatrist, doesn't want to admit that she did anything.
Yeah, look, it's a tragic story, but I question, they're saying the reasons are that this person didn't get gender-affirming care soon enough, and I don't want to be insulting or rude, but I question if it was that, or if it's just some root issue, long before that.
Because we're seeing a lot of overlap with other issues. With gender dysphoria also come, myriad
the numbers have gone up so much, people say it's a social contagion.
But this question is the most important question in the trans community, which is they actually believe the reason they're pushing pushing for this is saying it's saving lives, and if you're against the transitioning, you're basically murdering.
But it's the Guardian, let's remember.
Other people would say that it's also destroying some lives. Anyway, we've got the Times now with claims that there are no roles for white actors. That's not true. They're still allowed to be in ads for gambling and domestic violence, Nick.
You missed out euthanasia, Leo, in Canada, when they want all those white people to kill themselves. Yeah, white actors can't find work, says former RSC boss Gregory Doran. And this is what I got cancelled for in the comedy world when I said, I was actually the victim. Someone said to me they're not going to book me because I'm a straight white man. And I shared it with all the personal information taken out in a wry way. It blew up, went in the Express, the Telegraph, I was talked about in the Jeremy Vine show. The comedy industry attacked me, even though I was the victim. And now other people are saying it, but in acting. And he's saying that white people find themselves with very little work. But he cops out a little bit and says that, look, I guess it was important to level the playing field and other people have been historically oppressed and blah, blah, blah. So he cops out a bit, because that's not true. You either believe in meritocracy or you believe in equity, which is sometimes called equality of outcome, which is rigging things for certain races. And I think that's just a terrible route to go down. I've got in trouble for it before, but I believe meritocracy.
I think it's a true. It has to be true, because the more and more that they're hiring people of color, that means there's less work for white people. Yeah. So, but is that a bad thing? I'm not sure that's a bad thing.
If you're white.
Because once upon a time.
Also, it's about representation as well. I mean, if you turn on the TV and watch, an average ad break, I'm like, where's the representation for me? Surely I buy products as well.
I've told you, the euthanasia.
Anyway, let's go over to Saturday's Daily Mail now, and a very serious story of a professor being in trouble for being accused of the latest terrible and traumatic bigotry, Welshophobia, Cressida.
That's right. Wrexham professor who called the use of Welsh language on road signs as potentially dangerous is dismissed from university in free speech row. So this guy, he's working in Wales. I think he's English, and he says that we shouldn't have road signs with two languages.
Of course he's English. Disgusting.
I could do it in a Welsh accent. I don't think I'll get any less. Look, I'm from Bristol. We got Welsh all over the place. Look, no, look. He says they're confusing. They contain
Welsh
irrelevant.
People.
No, not Welsh people. Well, the ones in the sign writing department. Yes. No. Look, he doesn't think that you should have road signs with two languages on because it's too confusing. It takes too much time. He thinks it's dangerous. How fast does he drive?
And I'd agree with that as well. And also from the point of view of, thinking like Xi Jinping, the leader of China for a moment, you want to keep a strong national bond between all your peoples. So by, disintegrating and allowing like little nationalisms to pop up in Scotland and Wales, you're breaking down those common values.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just the sweetest story of the night. This is just sort of like, it's just, with all of the murder and bigotry and whatnot, it's just a bit of old Welshophobia.
Yeah.
You can't have anyone making any opinions in the world without being grassed up at work now, and you think that's...
You're at work right now, Cressida. OK, well, moving on, we're sticking with the Daily Mail, and news of an incredible, record-breaking, multi-billion deal in the world of computer games. Who knew that all the nerds and virgins had quite so much money, Nick?
Yeah, so this is about Microsoft closes $60 billion acquisition of gaming giant Activision Blizzard after nearly 2 years of antitrust battles, pulling off the biggest tech deal in history. Not my area of expertise. Last game I played was GoldenEye on the N64, but it is a massive business in the UK, of course. And it's about basically the issue of overregulation versus the problem of monopolies. Yeah. So that's where it is. And they found a kind of balance here by a key element of the deal is Microsoft has handed over distribution rights to Activision games to Ubisoft in France, and they've also said that you can still get Call of Duty on anything until any console for 10 years.
Because Sony said, well, Microsoft could cut off the supply of these games, these really popular titles, to the PlayStation 4 and 5, and obviously that would be bad for choice and bad for consumers all over the world.
Well, I think over time, what makes this thing so ridiculous is that in 10 years we're not going to have computer games.
What are we going to have?
Something else.
Just the metaverse. You'll just be living in the Matrix.
It'll be something else. It's like, look at Google could be gone because of AI, whatever. It's like eventually over time, you think these things are forever, and they're not forever.
Okay, that's some cheery stuff.
Existential take on that.
That's a good point. I think
That's a great point, Lewis. That's part 3 in the bag. Stay with us for our final section where we've got the cause of autism. I think we're going to analyse this panel. Micro-cheating and a creepy clown that isn't one of our panels. See you in a moment.
Considering I didn't...
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood.
And Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Anyway, welcome back to the final part of Headliners. The mail now with the underlying reason that everyone in this panel acts the way they do. Lewis.
Yes. According to the University of Maryland, where's the story that's coming up? Could a severe infection in the womb raise chances of autism? Science make unexpected discovery after studying children's brains. This is a sad story, just inherently.
It's good that they're getting closer to a cause for autism.
It could be a cause, but it says the University of Maryland, they said inflammation stunts the growth of a specific neurons in babies in the womb. And these 2 neurons, they're assuming if someone has an infection that it can cause autism through inflammation. But
go on.
But as we know, our modern diet is so inflammatory, and I think that's been
diet. This is what I was going to ask you, Liz, because I know you're an expert. You've got an almost autistic focus on diet.
There's been a huge growth in autism, a huge growth in the number of children having autism, and it's been basically mirrored by the use of seed oils, which are known to be toxic. And you should say no, they're not toxic.
I don't mean no.
No, and
they're not.
And
they're not toxic. I eat some
they
seed
might
oil.
be or might not be.
They might or might not.
Just to get the
But
full
we're
range.
seeing, I mean, regardless of your boring monologue about seed oil, we're seeing an increase in autism, and also there's a huge increase in inflammatory conditions. So conditions that are an autoimmune response, eczema, asthma, Crohn's disease, all this kind of stuff, rheumatoid arthritis. So the two could be linked. If inflammation is stunting neurons, then that would make sense.
Obviously, severe autism is a big problem, but we also need some autistic people to just tell the truth, don't we? In society. Do you know, it's actually a serious point. In the FSU, Free Speech Union, actually take cases of autistic people who have not understood the full nuances of the kind of ever-evolving woke lexicon and actually lose their jobs and things like that. And so you defend them, because how can they, you know, this is biased towards people who understand that kind of thing, whereas autistic people just tell it like it is sometimes.
Do you know anybody like that?
Not personally, but Toby's been dealing with them in the FSU.
Well, no, I think comedy.
Oh, you're saying I'm like that?
Well, comedy's...
I just got it's too autistic to get it, because I took it so literally.
Comedy is full of autistic people. Like there's me, Darius, you two. There's so many autistic people in comedy, because if you think about things and you take a literal view, you can quite often see just the bizarre, hilarious truth that nobody else is allowed to observe.
Someone once said to me, all blokes are autistic, and that just simplified it for me. I was like, it's basically
well,
right.
what is comedy except an alternate reality that makes sense? And that's...
Exactly. We've got the Metro now, and you wouldn't think it had been a slow news day, but they ran this story anyway, Nick.
Yeah, this is the Metro with why Friday 13th is the most sexist day of the year. And they like calling things sexist. They've done it to me, the Metro. It's barely a newspaper, but they've gone with Friday the 13th being sexist. If you look into it, there's still no real reason you can find throughout the whole article. But they go back to things to do with... They claim that the Bible is an example, and that, you know, Eve was offered the forbidden fruit to Adam on a Friday, and all this kind of nonsense, and then these feminist reasons for the Bible. They miss out the fact that God immediately punishes Adam the most and says, why did you take the fruit, and actually blames Adam and curses him. But hey, whatever. And then they say that there are 13 phases of the moon, and it's been associated with menstrual cycles. But it's not clear to me why that's sexist. That's what they failed to come up with throughout the whole article. So it's a great piece.
Well, they mention Venus, and the reason they associate Venus with women is because Venus was a comet that burst free from Saturn or Jupiter, I don't remember which, and looked like a red-headed woman.
Venus, the planet, the evening star.
Yeah.
But this is when they thought the evening star was... Because it doesn't look like... it just looks like a star.
Not the evening star.
Yeah, Venus is...
Before Venus, according to Velikovsky.
Oh, Venus the goddess.
Venus that was a comet. Sorry about that. Was a comet, and before it fell into place in our solar system, was considered a comet.
Right.
And then it stopped moving. And
is this a conspiracy theory or Greek mythology?
This is considered to be one of those science. What do they call it? Skeptical science, quack science.
It goes back to the Old English, and it's the god, and it comes from the Old English day of Frigg, which refers to the Norse goddess.
I've had a few days like that, usually when I'm hungover.
Magic. Yeah. Just thought I'd bring that up.
Okay, we've got the Mail now with great news for this panel. Women like muscle-bound Adonises with a great sense of humour, Lewis.
Well, this is not true. This is a non-news story, because women don't like muscle-bound. They don't like that. They don't like a guy who spends more time on themselves than they do on them. Women are attention seekers, and the story is bad. No, they are. Bad news. Women love attention and affirmation. Men, when a woman pays attention to a man, the man thinks this chick is crazy. But women like it. So there's bad news for skinny folks. Women prefer muscly men when it comes to flings. They don't. What this story basically says is that women will settle for a skinny guy.
Yeah.
If they are looking to get married because the skinny guy's got more money.
Yeah, no, I can explain the actual story if you want. Basically,
please,
women will look for strong. I mean, I do weights 3 times a week, so it's good for me. They look for a strong man who they think, in evolutionary terms, is more likely to produce strong children.
Right.
And they've done studies on this. When women take the pill, they go for more feminine men, and it depends on their ovulation cycle and all this kind of thing.
No
because,
way.
as Lewis hinted at, when they want a long-term relationship, they want a different kind of man versus a fling, or versus their instinctive idea of who will produce the better genes.
Yeah.
So it even varies with taking the pill and things like that. So it is interesting.
But women, generally speaking, you got to speak to the men out there. They don't like muscle-bound men. They don't like the big
That's what they've been telling you, Lewis. Like, we like funny guys.
No,
You've just been believing them for 70 years.
I've seen the YouTube videos. The YouTube videos, there's no
YouTube
denying
videos
this.
of what?
Where a guy goes in the street and he asks women, which would you rather, what do you think about this guy? He's got huge muscles, he's totally jacked up on steroids, and women don't find it attractive.
Well, maybe there's a
level.
when you
They
say,
don't like the six-pack.
Yeah, they don't want, you know, a guy who looks like an absolute circus freak muscle. Because with steroids and going to the gym every day, men can turn into absolute, you know, the Incredible Hulk. No. But women don't like that because, you know, number one,
because it means they're wasting their time on this thing. Look at the men. Look at the men that women like. They like this guy Malachi.
David Beckham.
Harry Styles.
Harry Styles, exactly. Yeah. Perfect example.
Mick Jagger.
Yeah, you're right, actually. That's the feminine
Mick Jagger is
loser
another one.
aesthetic is coming. You're
Okay,
right.
well, moving on, we've got the Mail now with the latest infuriating Gen Z term that'll make you hate everyone under 30, Nick.
Yeah, it's what is micro-cheating. TikTok trend has taken hold in the Gen Z dating scene, and it's nonsense, really, but it's small gestures like hiding messages from your partner and, I don't know, liking other people's photos, or one of them is you go and tell someone else who your partner doesn't like about how awful they are. I mean, that is bad. It's not micro-cheating, it's just not very nice. You just shouldn't do it. But yeah, it's all stuff like that. But this is coming from a 21-year-old influencer, so I don't really believe anything they say about anything.
I get all my news from a 21-year-old influencer on TikTok.
Yeah,
I believe it implicitly.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. It makes it seem like cheating never happened 10 or 20, 30 years ago. But whatever. This is all like little cheating. Every time, you know, you're walking down the street. I remember my mother smacking my father in the head. This is all the things that have happened since time immemorial. Maybe not on a...
There's a new one, though, is posting on social media. Like, if you don't post your partner on social media, but that can also happen if you're in right-wing media and, let's say, going out with an actor who can't be seen with you. Hypothetical example, but that can happen.
Well, yeah, and also, I wouldn't want my wife to, you know, be associated with me and get in trouble for, you know, because there's such a stigma, social stigma attached to certain things, such as being me.
Right, well, my wife didn't take my name, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You know, so that could be...
To hide her shame. Finally, we've got the Daily Star, which is a story getting us ready for Halloween about a creepy clown, Lewis.
Yeah, well, this is Pennywise Clown. I guess that's his name. Pennywise Clown from Stephen King's It Prowls. It Prowls. Oh, It.
Yeah.
It.
It's the word you're looking for.
I don't know. I'm not
still with 2 letters. You're more of a 1-letter guy.
Do you know what? This show has gotten so much better because I'm working with you, Nick, and we've been on very bad terms lately. And then this whole war situation.
People at home don't want to know about your petty feuds. Just tell us about this clown, for God's sake.
Well, yeah, they have to know because people are always asking, what's up with you?
You don't tell people. You keep the showbiz illusion of you like each other.
Remember Phil and Holly? Phil and Holly. How do you think they lasted so long, Lewis?
Yeah, I guess so. They faked it, really. But then when they broke up, it was like they were everyone was like started hating each other. Don't hate me. Hate him. I'm the good one. I'm the one. Nick's autistic.
Can you just tell us about this clown?
There's a clown up in Scotland who's
There's more than one.
There's one up in Scotland, and he's leaving red balloons.
He's running the SNP.
Like in the Stephen King thing. And
so
he's scaring
balloons
people.
around.
And he's scaring people. Nick knows everything. He's got 137 IQ.
It's true, actually, but that's not that high.
Well, it's much higher than mine.
You did an online IQ test.
Mensa test, yeah, it's official.
A Mensa test, official one that you clicked on when you're browsing Facebook.
But it's not that high. Andrew Dawes is like 200 and 2016. I don't know.
What do you make of this clown?
Well, I don't like. I hate horror. I mean, this guy's going around Skilmore just scaring people, and some people like it for some reason. But I hate horror. I hate everything about it. Stephen King's a weirdo. I watched a horror film once, and the director turned out to be. Are we allowed to say paedophile? Anyway, the point is, it's an immoral genre. I don't believe in it.
But he didn't pop up in the middle of the horror film. No,
it was found out later.
Oh, it was found out later.
I'm not saying this guy is. I'm just saying it's an immoral genre, and people shouldn't get involved.
It's an immoral genre?
Yes.
What, are you Calvin Robinson?
I like Calvin. Yeah, it's an immoral genre.
Yeah,
you shouldn't watch horror. There's something wrong with people. There's something wrong with people that watch. Stop giving away private place on this show. There's something
probably
wrong.
sent a prayer as well.
There's something. What's wrong with being a Christian? Why are you stigmatising?
You're paying for a trip to Disneyland. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Telegraph leads with Israel sends in forces as it warns of powerful offensive. The Times has disabled teen taken by Hamas. The Daily Mail leads with Israel's tanks strike into Gaza. The Sun has £9 million BBC Freddie payout. The Financial Times has residents flee Gaza City in fear. The Daily Star has Balloonatic, and those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. I'll be back here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Nick and Steve N. Allen. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, do stay tuned for breakfast. Thanks for watching. I've been Leo Kearse. Good night.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare